Welcome to Pro Football, first 50 years, where we take the past and we bring it back to life. I'm strictly talking the first 50 years, 1920 to 1970. And especially if you go back in time and try to check out a game from the 20s or the 30s. I mean, obviously, you can go online and find the box score, who won, who lost, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was that someone kicked, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. Might be able to find starting lineups for each team, but exactly what happened during the game? Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, a little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos or nothing like that here. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get it on in today's game. The Chicago Cardinals at the New York Football Giants at Yankee Stadium. November 8th, 1959. You couldn't possibly have two teams going in different directions than these two teams right here. And I mean, you always feel bad for the Cardinals. Even at the end of this season, the Cardinals wouldn't be in Chicago anymore. They would find themselves in St. Louis. I mean, they were looking to try to get out of Dodge. They tried to get out of Chicago, and they would. 1960. The Cardinals were like one of the worst, if maybe not the worst team in the NFL in 1959. Their record certainly showed it. The Giants, during the regular season, had the best overall record at 10-2. They had the best defense. They gave up the fewest points. That stuff didn't really help them too much when they got to the championship game, but these were the glory times for the Giants. 56-63. They went to 6 championship games. They only won 1, but it is what it is. The Cardinals, their glory times was in the late 40s. They won the 47 championship. They lost the 48 championships. They had some good teams in the late 40s, but I mean, they were not too good right about now. If you look at their roster, it's like they traded away Ali Matson to the Rams for like 9 players. Really didn't help. Dick Night Train Lane, John David Crow. I mean, there was not really. Some teams actually had like 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks on their roster, like the Eagles had Norm Van Brocklin and Sonny Jurgensen. Some teams, but you look at the up and down the line, and you're like, oh my God. It's like with the Redskins, certain teams you just like, oh, how do these teams win anything? And that was pretty much the Cardinals. But as the saying goes sometimes, newsflash here, I don't want to break nobody's heart. I mean, the Giants won this game, but sometimes it's not who you play, meaning like the Giants were like, really good. The Cardinals were really bad. It's not sometimes who you play. Sometimes it's not where you play, because this game is in New York. Sometimes it's when you play them. And when the team that's really good has a couple of key players injured, sometimes that gives a real big advantage to the bad team, as it would in this game here. And it was a battle of field goals. I mean, let's pull up the Giants right here. Let's see. Right. I mean, the Giants would lose an early one, the second game of the season, to the Eagles. They would go in there, and the Eagles would just straight up stomp all over the Giants, 49-21. Then the Giants would, wind up they won their first game, lost 1. Then they would win 5, and then they would lose the game after this one to the Steelers, and then they would finish up winning the final 4 games. Of the season, finished 10-2. But you'll notice here, right? I mean, right here, 9-3. Nobody even scored a touchdown in this game. Now you figure the Giants should just at home should romp all over the Cardinals. Nope, not the case. The Giants had a couple, which we're gonna take a little look into that in the pregame action here. A couple of the key offensive players were injured, and you can see here they kind of really hurt them big time. And then even the next week, they only scored 9 points. Then the final 4 games, guys started getting more healthy, and they actually started scoring some points. I mean, against one of the better teams in the league, the Browns, they actually scored 48 points. They scored 48 points somehow against the Browns, but they can only score 3 field goals at home against the Cardinals. Go figure. Well, look here, as you see with the Cardinals were not a defensive-minded team, shall we say? I mean, if you look here, the Cardinals gave up single digits on defense from the defense one time all year, and that was in this game right here. After this, gave up 27, then they gave up 30 to the same Giants. They gave up 30 points and 31, 45, 35. They gave up 24, 28. 34. They gave up all kinds of points, except for this one game here. Go figure. As I said, you can see, they won the first game of the season, and then after that, they lost every game but one to the Steelers. So they played their final season here was in Soldier Field. But if you'll notice, one interesting thing, they were actually they played 19 games, the Cardinals. 7 preseason games, 12 regular season games. That's just crazy. Absolutely crazy to play 7 preseason games. But the first preseason game that they played was against the CFL, of all things, the Toronto Argonauts in Toronto, Ontario. Go figure. Then they played the Lions, the Steelers, the Rams, the 49ers, the Steelers, and the Colts. They actually played the Steelers 2 times. And actually, they played, if you look, they played the Steelers 4 times. They played the Steelers 2 times in preseason, and then they played the Steelers here, and then the Steelers the final game of the season. They played this 4 times during the season. How crazy is that? But I'm not exactly sure, but I'm just speculating here. Possibly the reason why they played the Toronto Argonauts was because of their coach, Pop Ivy, who had some success, had more success in the Canadian Football League with the Edmonton Eskimos. Head coach, you'll see here. He was there for 4 years. They were in first place every year, 14-2, 11-5, 14-2, 11-5. So he had some very good success in the Canadian Football League. He came over to take over the Cardinals. They were 2-9. And then the last 2 years, he was actually, I'm sorry, my bad, right? Last two? Yeah, last 2 with the Cardinals. Some success. There was 61, but they were 5-7. But in 60, the year after this, so they went from 2-10 to 6-5-1. That's not a bad jump, although they did go to a different city, though. They were playing in St. Louis. Then after the 4 years with the Cardinals, he jumped to the Houston Oilers. And his first year with the Oilers, they were in first place, and they were 11-3. Then they went to 6-8. Then he finished that up with 3 years with an assistant coach with the Giants. 65, he was the assistant defensive coach, where they were 7-7. And then, I'm not exactly sure, but if this is true, he was the defensive coach, the defensive coordinator, whatever you have, on one of the, if not the worst defensive teams of all time. The 1966 New York Giants, who finished 112-1, gave up like 504 points. I gave up like 36 points a game. They gave up the most points in a regular season game in history. They gave up 72 points to the Washington Redskins in 1966. So he was the defensive coach to possibly the worst defensive team of all time. So that lasted 1 year. And then somehow he came back again in 1971 on the 71 Giants. And if he was their offensive line coach, That was one of the worst. I mean, the Giants' offensive line was not very good in 1971. They finished 4-10. They were 4-5 at one point. They lost their final 5 games, but they Ron Johnson, their running back, their main running back was injured. He only played in 2 games in 1971. But other than that, Frank Tarkenton was running for his life. They could not run the ball. But their coach Pop Ivy had some success. Not so much in the 1959 season. But I mean, I just want to show you. I mean, they played 7 preseason games, 12 regular season games. I mean, that's crazy. Absolutely crazy. That just goes to show you how things were back then. But this game here, I was played in good old Yankee Stadium. The first Yankee Stadium. So let's go to good old Wikipedia. And as they say in Wikipedia land here, that we're going to go to the Yankee Stadium 1923 Yankee Stadium, which is the original house that Ruth built. The one thing I do like about that and the way it is now, it's not the Cheetos, Fritos, Coca-Cola, Mercedes-Benz Yankee Stadium. No, it's Yankee Stadium. They kept it like that. I like that. So this one here, that obviously the 1923 version, the Yankees were sharing the Polo Grounds with the New York Baseball Giants for about 10 years. Things started getting a little antsy between the two. The Giants wanted the Yankees out, and so the Yankees pretty much agreed, and they had their stadium built. It was the home for the Yankees from 1923 to 2008, except for in 74 and 75 when it was renovated. The stadium was built from 1922 to 1923 for almost $2.5 million, which was quite a bit back then. Its construction was paid for entirely by the Yankees owner, Jacob Ruppert, who was eager to have his own stadium after sharing the Polo Grounds with the Giants baseball team the previous 10 years. I mean, it's so famous. There's all kinds of things. Boxing matches were in there, and just unbelievable. College football games. Army, Notre Dame. I mean, we just sell the place out in the 20s. Oh, unbelievable. But the Yankees had played at the Polo Grounds in Upper Manhattan since 1913. Now it's interesting because I believe it's the Harlem River separated. If you get like an aerial view of the Polo Grounds and Yankee Stadium, if you almost had a good enough arm, you could literally almost throw a baseball from over the Harlem River from the Polo Grounds to Yankee Stadium. I mean, they were that close. So sharing it since 1913, the Polo Grounds with the Giants. However, relations between the two teams were rocky, with the Giants harboring resentment toward the Yankees. The Yankees had been looking for a new and permanent venue since at least 1909. Of course, in 1920, the Yankees acquired Babe Ruth. In his first year with his new team, the Yankees drew 1.3 million fans to the Polo Grounds, far outdrawing the Giants. By the middle of the 1920, the Giants had issued an eviction notice to the Yankees, which was soon rescinded. But in 1921, the Yankees won their first American League pennant. But then, of course, they lost the best of 9 1921 World Series to the Giants in 8 games. But so they lost 5 games to 3. But all the games were played at the Polo Grounds. How crazy is that for a World Series? Let's see. This exasperated Giants owner Charles Stonehams and manager John McGraw's resentment of the Yankees and reinforced their insistence that the Yankees find another place to play their home games. So, Yankee Stadium opened up Wednesday, April 18th, 1923. Of course, against the Red Sox, who they got Babe Ruth from. Now you can see here, the how big it was a big stadium. It was like 400. It was a 400. It wasn't center field. I think it was left center. It was like 457 feet. It was a big stadium, big stadium. You don't find them that big anymore. Of course, they did some renovations. The Giants would move into Yankee Stadium after the 55 season, 1956. Their first season in Yankee Stadium, the Giants went to and hosted the championship game, and they would beat the Bears 47-8. And there was renovations in 74 and 75 and beyond. Although it's kind of tough to say that because after the 73 baseball season was over, the Giants were kicked out of Yankee Stadium. The Giants played their first two home games of the season in 1973 at Yankee Stadium. They would play against the Houston Oilers and beat them 34-14, and then they would tie the Philadelphia Eagles on a last-second field goal by Pete Gogolak. And after that, the Giants played the rest of the games from 73 and 74 at the Yale Bowl. 1975, the Giants would play at Shea Stadium with the Jets, and in 1976, Giant Stadium opened up. So the Giants played at Yankee Stadium from 1956 to the very first 2 weeks of the 73 season. But I mean, it's just a beautiful, absolutely beautiful ballpark. It's just weird because it's always like, some stadium like Wrigley Field, Fenway, still the original stadium, and but with some of them they can save, some of them it's better off just knocking them down and rebuilding. Well, I mean, they knocked down Yankee Stadium and rebuilt a new one right next to it. Yankees, it's still called Yankee Stadium, and also. The picture over here looks like they're doing some demolition in February 2010 at the top, and 3 months later, the remains of the. So you got the remains right here of Yankee Stadium, and here's the new Yankee Stadium. Absolutely beautiful ballpark. So I do have to give them a lot of kudos for that. Still says Yankee Stadium. It's a new. It's built to last, so you got to give them credit for that. Somewhere here it says football. I mean, if I read all of this stuff from Yankee Stadium, we'll be here for about 4.5 months. So I want to go down here. It might take me about 4.5 months to get down here. Final game, the old Yankee Stadium. The Yankees beat the Baltimore Orioles 7-3. Collegiate baseball was there. Boxing, some big boxing matches were there. College football. I mean, yes, big time. Notre Dame played 24 games at Yankee Stadium. Army played 38. Now, don't be snickering at Army, because back in Army was the team for some time there. Not lately, although Army's had some good teams, but I mean, they're not going to go up against play Ohio State and beat Ohio State. But there were times when Army was the best team in the nation. And there were many times where Army and Notre Dame played one another, and it was just an all-out battle. Here we go. Notre Dame and Army at Yankee Stadium in 1969. I mean, it's going to sell out regardless. I mean, if Notre Dame was 12-0 and Army was 0-12, the Yankees, it's going to sell out. Professional football. Now, interestingly, though, right? In 1926, after negotiations failed with fledgling NFL and the Chicago Bears, Red Grange and his agents, they call C.C. Powell, but some people say Cash and Carry Powell, formed the first American Football League in 1926 and fielded a team called the New York Yankees, based in Yankee Stadium. The league failed after only 1 year. Actually, there was 9 teams in the league. 5 of them folded before the end of the season was over. There was only 4 teams left at the end of the season that actually were operating. One of them was the Philadelphia Quakers, who won the whole kit and caboodle. Let's see. The Giants, here we go. The Giants of the NFL played their home games at Yankee Stadium from 1956 to the first 2 weeks of 73. On December 28, 1958, they're called the greatest game of all time. I can't say it wasn't maybe the great. It might have been maybe the most important game, maybe of all time. Maybe it wasn't the greatest played game. There was some sloppiness to it. Let me tell you. Frank Gifford, I think, fumbled 3 times, which cost the Giants dearly. So, but anyway, known as the hit, obviously, when Philadelphia Eagles Chuck Bednarik leveled Frank Gifford. In the last minute of a close game, the Giants needed that game to try to stay in contention for first place. The Eagles would wind up winning that game, and of course, they would win the Eastern Division, and win the championship. Oh, there we go. Giants played their first 2 home games, Yankee Stadium in 1973, concluding the tendency on September 23rd with the 23-23 tie against the Philadelphia Eagles. Actually, the clock was running. I think Norm Snead hit Bob Tucker with a pass, I guess, somewhere around the 10-yard line. If the game was actually about a minute longer, the Giants were driving down the field. The reason why Pete Goldglass had to run on the field is because there was only like 10, 15 seconds to go in the game. The Giants, for some reason, they completed a pass inbounds with the clock running instead of trying to get them out of bounds or something. But anyway, Giants had no timeouts. But the clock was running out. Pete Goldglass had to run on the field, and basically almost as the time expired, they snapped the ball, and Pete Goldglass kicked the game-tying field goal. Giants played their first 2 home games, and then they moved to the Yale Bowl in New Haven, Connecticut for the rest of the season and all of the 74 season. In 1976, after the renovations, New York Jets hosted 3 preseason games, Giants, the Raiders, and the Redskins at Yankee Stadium. Soccer was there. It's just, unbelievable, it's like, what didn't it have? Just the history. So just show you obviously some pictures. Some of these are just so iconic. It's like, it's like, my goodness. You look at some of these are from the champion, this one right here, 58 championship game right here. Johnny Unitas throwing over Dick Modulewski right here. Got Sam Huff, the middle linebacker here. Right. This is probably a deep pass, I'm going to say, to Lenny Moore down the sideline down here. This one's really iconic. Whoops, if I can scroll it down. This one here. Yeah, this one. Right. Here's Modulewski. This might be Cat Cabbage right here. Right. He's getting ready to launch another one. Here's Mel Triplett running 58 championship game. Where we at? I know there was a couple of photos. There we go. There we go. It shows you the layout. Yankee Stadium. We got the NY there. Here's another one. Is a nicer one right here. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is, huh? Man, absolutely beautiful. It's just the way it is, the way it's laid out. Sometimes, like if you're, the way the field is, some of the sides, it might be so far away, like obviously in this picture right here, right? Right. See, if the stadium the field ends here, like, well, if you're way over here, you're far away. You can see how far away you are. And if you're like in the upper deck back here, because this is the outfield out here. So if you're behind maybe around whatever this is, the home plate or the third base side, if you're in the upper deck here and the game and way over there, you're really, really far away from the action. Yeah. You can see like right here, right? So if we're right here, we're in the upper deck here. This is the upper deck. And if you're in the back row of the upper deck and the game is like way where it is right here, you can see how far away you are. It's really, really. Look at this. Look how beautiful that is. Yankee Stadium. Absolutely freaking amazing. 1959 photo. There you go. So these could be, could be people possibly going to a Giant game right here. Maybe it's this game we're talking about. Who knows, right? This is Pat Summerall kicking. Looks like it's maybe against the Steelers. Here's Frank Gifford running against the Cleveland Browns, December 6, 1959. 68,000 on hand as a giant Yankee Stadium. I mean, just, absolutely beautiful. And unfortunately here, right, this is, let's see here. I'm not sure what this is here. See the checkered board, you see that? So I'm not sure if that would be a college game or what exactly. But, all right, well, enough of that. We got a lot of coverage of this game, so, but once again, just, Yankee Stadium. I mean, to me, I don't care what the stadiums are nowadays. You can't, I'm an old fart, so please forgive me. You can't touch the polo grounds. Yeah, you can't touch them. Can't touch them with a 10-foot pole. That's just so magnificent. Because it's outdoors, it's in the weather elements, and it's on grass, unlike the crap they play on today. All right, so got a little bit of pregame action here. So we're going to go to the New York Times. He's going to explain a little bit more about some of the casualties that the Giants have. So we're going to go to the November 8th, 1959 edition of the New York Times. If I can find it. Here we go. All right. This is one of the stars. Actually, Joe Conrad, fleetest of the Cardinal Whiz Kids. And this tell you right here. In the second quarter last Sunday, an unmannerly varlet on the Green Bay Packers tried to separate Charlie Connolly from his right foot. This would be one of the players that the Giants had who was a little banged up, their starting quarterback. It was too firmly attached, however, his foot. And all that was accomplished was a badly wrenched ankle. My daughter just texted me, happy birthday. Today's my birthday, April 14th. When the Giants defensive team took over, the grayish quarterback limped to the sideline. Don't keep me out, said Connolly to coach Jim Lee Howe. I'll be all right as long as the ankle stays hot. Thereupon, Chuck and Charlie plunged his ankle into a bucket of ice. Repeatedly, he returned to the fray, and his exit song never varied. The ankle's still hot, he kept saying just before sticking it into the bucket of ice. This byplay baffled Jack Mara, the president of the football club. How can you keep anything hot by applying ice to it, he asked. It's a matter of semantics, my boy, airily said Dr. Francis J. Sweeney, the learned team physician. A hot ankle is one that's alive. Swelling will kill it. So we use ice to check swelling, and that keeps it alive or hot. The next time I ask you a question, Doc, Jack, please don't answer it. The hot and cold Connolly has since turned completely frigid. His ankle is so swollen that he will not be able to play today at Yankee Stadium as the Giants square off against the hot and cold Chicago Cardinals. Now, the Giants had quarterbacks. They actually had a plethora. I'm sorry, buddy. A plethora of quarterbacks. But none of them were to the starting caliber of Charlie Connolly. Let's see. The youngest team, so the Cardinals were the youngest team in pro football. The unpredictable kids of Frank Pop Ivy can win them big or lose them crazy. Just last week, they polished off the rugged Steelers 45-24. A week earlier, they had the Eagles beaten 24-0 and lost 28-24. They do nothing according to the formula. This even applies to trades. Yeah, they were probably better off keeping Ollie Matson, but the Cards engineered a stunner last winter. They yielded their superstar, Ollie Matson, to the Los Angeles Rams for virtually an entire football team, 9 players. And it really didn't help out either team. The Rams this year with Ali Matson stunk. And the Cardinals this year with 9 players minus Ali Matson stunk. They were basically both the worst team. And one was in the Eastern Division and the other one was in the Western Division. Both clubs are immensely satisfied with the swap. The Cards got 4 regulars out of it, plus secondary strength, and Ivy juggled personnel for better rounded platoons. He attacks from a double wing razzle-dazzle with John Crow and Bobby Joe Conrad, once Texas Aggie teammates, as his key operatives. The quarterback is King Hill. King Hill, I think he completed like 45% of his passes. He threw 7 touchdown passes this particular season, had 13 interceptions. As I said, some teams were lucky. They actually had 2 Hall of Famer quarterbacks on their roster. The Cardinals, no, not so much. Let's see. King Hill is a bonus pick from Rice and a big bruiser who will be 23 years old today. The Giants do not plan to bake him a birthday cake. In fact, the Mara Marauders will be most wary of Pop's whiz kids, especially with Connolly and Frank Gifford sideline and with other Giants barely off the hospital list. But at least they will be forewarned about Cardinal propensity for running back kicks for huge distances and touchdown. 2 were scored that way last week. It was a Cardinal who ran back the longest punt ever against the Giants, although it was quite a while ago. Frank Sino returned a kickoff 105 yards in 1946, an exploit that almost had stout Steve Owen swallowing his cud of eating tobacco. Defenders are always at fault in a feat of that nature, and stout Steve couldn't wait to see the pictures in order to spot the culprits. He watched the film with Wellington, the Duke, Mara, and leaped to his feet before the touchdown jaunt was completed. "Run that play over," stout Steve shouted. They ran it over. As Sino streaked past the Cardinal bench at midfield, Phil Handler of the coaching staff was racing in full stride down the sideline, yelling words of encouragement, and more amazing still, not losing an inch of ground. Sino and Handler crossed into the end zone abreast. "That silly Handler," exclaimed Steve, "can run faster now than when he was playing." Another escort, unfortunately. Sadly, before the late Bert Bell became commissioner of the National Football League, he was owner and coach of the Eagles, then a forlorn football team. But one afternoon, the Eagles were on the verge of achieving the impossible. They were about to beat the Bears. In the closing minutes, the monsters of the Midway wriggled off the hook by means of a wild play they used only to enliven practice sessions. Bill Hewitt swept back on an end around and threw a pass to the other end, Luke Johnses. The only Eagle near Johnses when he made the catch was Bell, a sideline non-combatant, shouting imprecations all the way. Bert ran 80 yards down the sideline alongside the laughing Luke. The coaches today are strictly sedentary. If long gains are made, the runners will have to do it alone and without a coaching escort. But it would just show you is that Frank Gifford, was taken off on a stretcher 2 weeks prior against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He torn some rib cartilage, I believe it was, on his right side, and he spent time in the hospital. So he plays in this game. I don't know how, but so the Giants on offense were banged up. Now, is that an excuse why they only scored 9 points? Yeah, but as I said, sometimes it's not who you play, not where you play it. Sometimes it's when you play them. If some of their stars are banged up, it makes things a little bit more interesting, as it did in this game. All right, so let's go here now to the Daily News, November 9th, 1959 edition of the New York Daily News. Let's see here. What page was that here? All right, here we go. All right. Giants triumph over the Cards 9-3 with Summerall's 3 field goals. See, Frank Everett actually plays in this game. 2 weeks prior, he was taken out, I think, I remember, like unconscious. He scored 2 touchdowns. He scored two touchdown passes, receptions. Gave the Giants a 14-3 lead, and like shortly after that, somewhere along he tore rib cartilage on his right side and was taken out on a stretcher. And I remember correctly, he was like unconscious, and they took him to the hospital where he spent the night or a couple of days there or something like that. So I mean, how in 2 weeks he's running with the football? I have no idea, but he was far from being 100%. I can guarantee you that. It was the talented toad, Pat Summerall, to the rescue yesterday in refrigerated Yankee Stadium as the Giants clipped the Cardinals 9-3 in a touchdownless victory that enabled them to retain first place in the NFL's Eastern Division. With the Giants' offense in a fumbling mood, the X-Card booted the leather over the uprights in the first, third, and fourth periods to cement the triumph over his old teammates. Now that's, because Pat Summerall used to play for the Cardinals. Summerall's field goals were accomplished from ranges of 37, 49, and 20 yards. Now, it's interesting because a couple weeks prior against the Steelers, in a close game, he missed one from 17 yards. Giants beat the Steelers 21-16. A field goal would have been huge, but he missed a couple from, but one was farther out, but one was a 17-yard field goal, which he kicked wide. But it was a kick. He never got a chance to boot from a cinch distance in the final minute of the game that provided a controversial punctuation point to victory. Thanks to a 26-yard pass, interception run back by Harlan Safari, and a 13-yard burst by Mel Triplett, the Giants had the ball inside the Cardinal 25 for 5 plays at the windup. One, a 5-yard delay of game penalty, but on orders from the bench, they played it safe and ran out the clock. Filling an inside straight. Rosie Brown, right here, laying on the ground, Hall of Famer. Puts key block on Cardinals' Jimmy Hill as Frank Gifford cuts inside Bill Stacy and gets away for a 50-yard gainer in the third period at Yankee Stadium. The anguished screams of the foil bettors who had laid the points on the 7-point favorite. Giants won by 6. 7-point favorite Giants all but drowned out the sound of the final gun. Oh, yeah, you're looking at the Giants are in first place. The Cardinals are absolute horrible. It's only a touchdown, and the Giants are at home. Oh, yeah, I'm picking the Giants. Absolutely. But without Chuck Connolly, the original Marlboro Man, who limped out on his damaged ankle only to hold the pigskin for Summerall's trio of 3-pointers, the Giant attack never quite gelled. George Shaw was on the mound in the first half, but damaged the thumb on his pitching hand and retired in favor of Don Heinrich. Between them, they completed 11 of 18 passes for 165 yards, but no touchdowns. Giants' defense was its usual devastating self, with young Dick Lynch starring for the secondary, but the Cardinals were no slouches in this respect either. Frank Fuller, a 245-pound tackle who wears number 72, was pulverizing the Giants' offense all afternoon. And the Rangers and Detroit were a 3-3 tie, in case you had any money bet on that game. For a tilt without a touchdown, the game had its moments, although its patterns must have been pretty confusing to the frigid turnout of 56,779. So this is the beginning of November, and they're talking about frigid temperatures. Right? For instance, John David Crow of the Cardinals, the Heisman Award winner from Texas A&M, exploded 2 gorgeous runs of 73 yards each in the opening half, but all the underdogs got out of it was a lone field goal. 73 yards each. He gained 146 yards rushing on 2 runs. Cardinals got a field goal out of it. The Giants started out as though they really were going places. Shaw hit Alex Webster with a pass, good for 13 yards and a first down on the Cardinal 44. But the drive ended with Summerall topping his kick from the 48, his only flub of the afternoon. Another Shaw pitch, this one to Frank Gifford, who talked Dr. Francis Sweeney into letting him play over the protest of Coach Jim Lee Howell, promptly moved the Giants back into position for another Summerall boot. And Pat didn't miss this one. He carried 37 yards and gave the home forces the lead at 9:58 of the opening period. On the ensuing kickoff, Crow broke loose for the first of his 2 long-range romps. He took the ball on the 10, reversed. Okay, so let's go to dun, dun, dun. Got a lot of coverage on this one, so I want to try to get. All right, so he reversed his field, threw a hole at the 38, veered to the sideline, and sprinted to the Giants' 17 before Lynch flagged him down. This was the first of 2 great defensive plays by the second-year man from Notre Dame, Dick Lynch. He's the one that scored the touchdown against Oklahoma from Notre Dame that snapped Oklahoma's 47-game winning streak. So, Crow's run went for naught because the Giant defense, in the person of Harlan Safari, knocked him loose from the leather 3 plays later. Safari hit Crow, and Dick Modzelewski retrieved the bounding ball. The Giant offense went nowhere from its 13. Bill Stacy returned Don Chandler's punt 20 yards to pave the way for Bobby Joe Conrad's 25-yard field goal. Bobby Joe Conrad was around for quite a while, and he was kicking for quite a while, too. I remember him being with the Bears. I remember he would be kicking, and he wouldn't have a face mask. Bobby Joe Conrad's 25-yard field goal, which tied the score 2:01 of the second chukker. These were all the points the Cardinals were going to get, although no one in the joint would have bet on it when Crow tore off his second 73-yard run midway through the period. The Giant defense was rushing passer King Hill, who slipped the pigskin to Crow on a belly series play. Crow blasted into the clear to the left side of the Giant line, and it was linebacker Cliff Livingston who finally brought him down from the rear on the Giant 12. 2 line plays run at Andy Robustelli and Jim Katcavage, Rosie Greer, and Dick Modzelewski and company gained just 3 yards. So Hill tried to pass to end Johnny Tracy, and that's when Lynch pulled his second defensive gem of the battle. Cutting in front of Tracy, at the last split second, Lynch picked off the pigskin and spiked Chicago's only real TD threat of the game. Giants paraded 68 yards just before the intermission, but defender Jerry Norton matched Lynch's end zone interception with one of his own. He leaped in front of Shaw pass intended for Kyle Rote. The score remained knotted until 6:50 mark of the third period when Summerall hoisted one from 49 yards out, his favorite range. It was his third of the season at this distance. Yeah, Summerall can from basically midfield. He some reason he liked him and he was good from midfield, but sometimes he would get in close as all those other kickers did back then. And as I said, 2 weeks prior, one of a field goal he missed was from 17 yards out. It had plenty of length, but he missed it wide. For some reason, he can nail him from 50 yards out, but when he gets 17 yards, sometimes it is what it is. An exchange of fumbles set the stage for this kick. Heinrich fumbling to the Cards, Ed Culpepper, and Hill returning the favor on the next play, where Culpepper merely fell on the pigskin. Robustelli scooped up the ball and packed it 30 yards to the Cards' 43 before he was nailed. The ball-carrying attempts of Webster and Triplett were smeared, however, as was Heinrich's aerial to Bob Schnelker. so Summerall trotted in for field goal number 2. The Giants came closest to a touchdown at the start of the fourth period after Lyndon Crow swiped a hill pass intended for end Sonny Randall. He grabbed the leather on the card 44 and ran down to the 14. On fourth down with 2 yards to go, Webster was stopped cold on the 5 as he tried an inside buck. Gifford's glue-fingered catch had set up the first of Summerall's field goal. Now he paved the way for the third. On the first, he had split defenders Billy Stacy and Bill Coleman. On this one, he whisked between Norton and Dick Night Train Lane to spear Heinrich's peg on the card 22. Summerall, with the 4th and 1 situation at the 13, came in and booted the 20-yarder, which ended the scoring. The Cards made some threatening moves in the closing minutes, but Safari ended the nonsense with a 26-yard interception gallop. It was the third pilfering Pat committed on Hill, who had a real rough time with only... we'll finish it. Giants had 11 first downs. The Cardinals had 6. They had 171 yards total offense, the Cardinals. 73 came in on one play. So basically the whole rest of the game on offense, the Cardinals had like less than 100 yards of offense. And the Giants were not much better, although they did have nearly 300 yards of offense here. So, but, Giants picked off 3 passes. The Cardinals picked off 2. Cardinals lost 2 fumbles. The Giants, so each team had 4 turnovers. As I said, one thing that was always very, very interesting to me, and I say this almost in every video, is it's amazing how few yards penalized teams were back then. Giants were 25, and the Cardinals were only 25. Today, sometimes you can't even watch a game. It's so unbearable because I guess for some reason the refs have to throw a flag. Some crews throw flags like on every other play. It makes it almost barely unwatchable. But who had a real tough time with only, let's see, where are we going there? Oh, there we go. 8 completions for 63 yards and 21 tries. So the final payoff was on Summerall's toe, although the Giants, as 7-point favorites, blew bets for their followers who backed them with cold cash. They had a chance to go for a field goal at the very end, but Howell elected to play it safe and run out the clock. The anguished screams of those who had laid 7 points could be heard all over the stadium. Well, but I mean, that's a smart thing to do. Run out the clock. Going to try to kick a field goal. Somebody comes in, blocks it, picks it up, runs it back for a touchdown. Now you lose 10-9. You could have won the game 9-3, but now you lost it 10-9. So, smart thing to do. Win the game. All right, let's see. I've got to go back here because there was another article here in the Daily News I want to go over here. So let's go here, back to this Daily News. Here we are. Oh, here we go. There's another article here. Bum, 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 bum. Sure hurts thumb. Gift may get crack at quarterback. Frank Gifford may finally get his chance to play quarterback for the Giants. This strange turn of events came about after yesterday's game when it was discovered George Shaw had suffered torn ligaments at the base of his right thumb and will be a doubtful starter against the Steelers in the stadium next week. Another one of the Giants had, having problems with quarterbacks. Another one of the reasons why the following week they only scored 9 points against the Steelers and lost that game. This coupled with Charlie Connolly's bad ankle, so that basically the Giants' first 2 quarterbacks are all banged up. Don Heinrich is an okay quarterback, but he's not starting caliber, as the Giants will once again find out. But this couple with Charlie Connolly's bad ankle could give the glamour boy from USC his long looked-for chance to switch to the signal calling position. Gift started off in training camp last summer as one of the 5 quarterbacks the Giants had on their roster. And actually, in the first preseason game, exhibition game, in the first quarter, Frank Gifford was the starting quarterback for the Giants in the exhibition. They had Charlie Connolly, George Shaw, Don Heinrich, and the departed Lee Grosscup, who the Giants drafted with their number one overall pick in 1959. So the Giants actually had 5 quarterbacks if you throw Gifford in there in preseason. After a few tries in the preseason exhibition, the Brains decided that he was more valuable at halfback and kept him there. However, the entire coaching staff agreed if he wasn't the best halfback in the league, he would make a better than fair quarterback. Could give Giff will get a chance to prove them right, that they were right. While the Giant fans were yelling, "We want Shaw," through many portions of the second half, they weren't aware of the seriousness of his injury. Dr. Francis Sweeney at first feared a fractured thumb and sent him to St. Elizabeth Hospital for x-rays. They proved negative, but disclosed the torn ligaments. "I couldn't grip the ball," George said. "When did I get hurt? Sometime in the second quarter. Don't know exactly how or when." Giants defense yesterday reached its absolute peak of the season. A tremendous effort, by far our best, defensive coach Tom Landry said. Between Tom Landry and he's another one the Giants let it get. They let Vince Lombardi get away, and then of course after this season they let Tom Landry get away. Though the defense had been superb the week before against the Packers, it had to be super superb yesterday. It was a lot easier defending against the Packers because we see their type offense all the time, Landry pointed out. We had just 1 week to prepare for the Cardinals' double wing. Giants were shooting their defenders much more than usual, particularly against the spread. Normally, we play a waiting game, Landry commented. Since King Hill, the Chicago quarterback, isn't much of a passer, it was the Giants' intention to smash the running game immediately and force Hill to pass. While Pop Ivy, the Cardinal coach, seemed to be most impressed by the Giants' line of defenders, "Those horses on the scrimmage line sure make it tough," he said. Jim Leal saved his highest praise for his backs. "Our secondary has been coming along week by week," the New York mentor asserted. Lynch played a beautiful game. Nolan was just great. So was Crow. Many fans, particularly those who bet on the Giants and laid 7 points, wondered why the Giants didn't try a field goal on the last play of the game. They might have when Connolly, the ball holder, was sent out onto the field. He went there with orders to stall as much as possible. When he called for a delay of game, thereby stopping the clock, he asked the official clocker how much there was left. Had there been more than 30 seconds, Pat Summerall would have booted, but there wasn't. So, though Frank Gifford, who played all the way except for the final sequence, said his injured ribs were a little sore. I bet they were. He was sure he hadn't aggravated. Okay, let's go to the next. I got it. I'm playing with the ribs. I mean, he had to be hurting for certain, man. Aggravated the injury. Someone mentioned he looked loose out there. I sure did, Frank admitted. I was avoiding everyone and everything. John Crow was disappointed that he didn't go all the way on his 2 73-yard runs, one with a kickoff and the other on a draw play. He explained, on the kickoff, that number 31, George Scott, really stopped me, although it was Lynch who made the tackle. I saw number 31 coming down at me. He looked little, so I figured he had a lot of speed and could catch me. So I turned in behind a blocker, slowing down, and Lynch caught me from behind. On the other long run, Patton was down there and had a good angle on me. I knew I couldn't beat him to the corner, but I thought I could run through his arms and go all the way. But while I was maneuvering to get the right angle on Patton, I slowed down enough so Lynch could catch me again. Connolly was in no shape to play. He even tried to pass off his left foot instead of his sprained right one before the game. The ankle was still that sore. Howell and Allie Sherman, coach of the offense, each made excuses for the Giants' inoffensive attack. How the field was soft and loose, and the backs couldn't cut as well as they usually do. It hurt both sides. I'm glad we didn't catch them on a fast track. Sherman said, our blocking wasn't good, but our offense may have suffered a little bit because we didn't know how hard to work Gifford and whether Schnelker, pinched nerve in his back, would be able to block. So, I mean, the Giant, Bob Schnelker was a great receiver for the Giants. Gifford was injured with his ribs. The starting quarterback was out. So the Giants were really pretty much banged up on offense. Although they had almost 300 yards of offense, a lot of those turnovers hurt them. It wasn't until just before the game that Gifford talked Doc Sweeney into giving him the green light to play. Look, it doesn't hurt at all. I'm sure he's lying. Frank told the doctor as he pounded his injured ribs. Yeah, right. Why should I be on the bench when I feel all right? Okay, said the doctor, we'll let you play, but not start. Gifford then had to talk his way into the starting lineup, pointing out that sitting on the bench and getting cold might hurt instead of help his ribs. For the first time this home season, the Giants, who most deserved the plaudits, the defensive unit, were announced as they lined up in midfield before the game. Absolutely. They say, because a lot of times one thing that would piss off, especially like Sam Huff, would be that the starting offense scores 9 points, but the defense holds the other team to 3. And, a lot of times the starting offense gets, announced before the starting offense, Frank Gifford and Rosie and everybody, and the defense doesn't maybe get announced. So that kind of would leave a bad taste in the mouth of some of the players, especially Sam Huff. So sometimes the defense did get their just due. And this game, they played a heck of a game. All right, so let's go now. Let's go to the New York Times. Got a couple things on the New York Times here. All right, here we go. Giants beat Cardinals on 3 field goals by Summerall. 56,779 fans see the 9-3 contest. And once again, you can just say, Giants had almost 300 yards. They had 171, 73 came on one. So basically, you take that one play away, they had 35 yards rushing and 63 yards passing. So you take that one draw play away, they had less than 100 yards of offense, the Cardinals. Good things come in threes, it is said, and 3 times 3 means 9 points for the New York Giants in their National Football League contest with the Chicago Cardinals at Yankee Stadium yesterday. Ordinarily, 9 points may get a professional team through one half, but this time 3 field goals by Pat Summerall carried the New Yorkers to a 9-3 triumph. The 3 points for Chicago were, of course, also as a result of a field goal. Bobby Joe Conrad's 25-yarder in the second quarter. So those among the 56,779 fans who like to see in football saw a little else. Summerall accounted for successful boots of 37 yards in the first period, 49 yards in the third, and 20-yarder in the fourth period. Summerall missed a try from the 48 in the first period. There was the possibility of another field goal from the 30 in the closing seconds, but Summerall had no intentions of kicking. Those who had wagered on the favored Giants and given away 7 points disapproved as the last 19 seconds ticked away without a play being made. Giants, though, had no intention of making one. With a lead of merely 6 points, there was no sense in risking a block placement and the possibility of the Cardinals going all the way. The object is to win the football game. This was the 6th victory for the Giants on the season. Victory, so that there was 6-1 after this. Victory by any margin was the main concern of Jim Lee Howell's division leaders. This one, their 5th in a row and 6th of the campaign, kept the Giants atop the Eastern Conference, 1 game ahead of the Cleveland Browns. While the Giants never were really in danger of losing, this was hardly one of their good showings on attack. For the most part, it was a game in which intercepted passes and recovered fumbles, aside from Summerall's place kicking, provided the major thrills. Missed blocking assignments cut into the efficiency of New York's offense, while the Cardinals found the Giants' defensive platoon too tough most of the time. That defense with Sam Huff, Dick Modzelewski, Roosevelt Greer shining up front, and Dick Lynch, Dick Nolan, Jim Patton, and Lyndon Crow more than holding their own in the secondary, limited Chicagoans to 171 yards, 63 in the air. The Giants gained 295 yards, 165 overhead. Till George Shaw suffered a severe sprain of his right thumb in the third period, the former Baltimore Colt was a good replacement for the incapacitated Charlie Connolly. The latter, nursing a twisted ankle, was employed only to place the ball for Summerall's field goals. For all of Shaw's success with aerials, 9 of 13 for 126 yards, the Giants failed to move with the consistency demanded of them by Howell and Allie Sherman. His aide, invariably a formidable advance, stalled because of an interception, a fumble, or a good defensive move by the Cardinals. Hill's rollouts minimized. Similarly, the Cardinals suffered from time to time because of an interception, a fumble, or a good defensive move by the Giants. King Hill's rollouts as quarterback and coach Frank Pop Ivy's double wing T were minimized, as was the razzle-dazzle that had been expected from the visitors. Frank Gifford and Bob Schnelker, two of the injured Giants, saw considerable service and fared well. Especially Gifford, the amply taped halfback, was a favorite target of Shaw's passes. He caught 4 passes for 95 yards. Still, the Giants were unable to fashion a touchdown. They reached the 12 in the second, only to see Jerry Norton intercept a pass in the end zone. Earlier in the period, the Cardinals, thanks to a spectacular 73-yard run on a draw play by John David Crow, went to the 6. Lynch's interception of an end zone toss saved the situation then. A golden opportunity was wasted by the Giants early in the fourth, after Lyndon Crow had intercepted a King Hill aerial and raced 25 yards down to the 14. 3 plays left the Giants a foot short of a first down on the 5. The fourth saw the Giants' Alex Webster hauled down by a trio of Chicago defenders, still inches short. So maybe they should have tried to kick a field goal there. Don Heinrich was the quarterback then, as he was on a neat 32-yard pass that Gifford caught for a first down on the 23. Subsequently, Summerall booted his third three-pointer, this one from the 20. A 24-yard toss from Shaw to Gifford had paved the way for Summerall's 49-yarder at 9:58 in the first. John David Crow's 72-yard return of Summerall's kickoff was quite a trick. The Chicago Crow got a good block from Dale Memilar at the start. En route, he had 2 others running interference, but George Scott stripped the pair, enabling Lynch to make the tackle. Anyway, the Cards had a good chance, but tossed it away when Crow fumbled and Modzelewski recovered for New York on the 12. Greer limped off, as did Webster at different intervals, but both were able to return later. Shaw, however, was taken to St. Elizabeth's Hospital. X-rays proved negative. So they're starting lineups for the team. And there's all the scares. Basically, a field goal was scored in every quarter. We got another one here of the New York Times. So let's pop that one up. All right, here we go. There's a pass to Gifford. The passing scene. 2 of the Giants' field goals were set up by pass plays. In the first period, George Shaw tossed to Frank Gifford, insert diagram, for a 24-yard gain. Here, Shaw gets off a pass that led to the score. And here's Pat Summerall pointing to his toe. See the square foot, square toe there, right? So Gifford. So Kyle Rowe comes here. I guess the linebacker was blitzing. So kind of open things up here. This is what happened, boy. I'll tell you what, they did not have a good defense against this. I mean, if this linebacker was blitzing here and this linebacker was blitzing here, I mean, whew. So Gifford got in here. So Colorado came here and possibly cleared this out a little bit. And Gifford came in across the middle over here. And George Shaw dropped back and hit him. And it's funny because you see, you got the Giants. They have a red stripe on their helmet here, but no insignia. Roosevelt Brown here laying on the ground and saying no insignia. With the Cardinals, it's just a white helmet. Nothing. Like no number or nothing. What was at best a sputtering offense for the New York Giants yesterday had some bright moments. Some of these well-run plays were necessary to get the ball into position for Pat Summerall's place kicking. Frank Gifford, though, still suffering from those torn ligaments around his ribs, played well. On one particular pass pattern, Gifford and George Shaw teamed for important yardage. Although the Giants couldn't get ahead too well on the ground, they made a good gain in the first period via a Shaw to Gifford pass, simple in concept and execution, but effective enough for 24 yards. Soon after this play, Summerall kicked the first of his 3 field goals on the day. Chicago Cardinal linebackers harassed Shaw in the first half and Don Heinrich in the second with their red dogging, charging the line to get at the passer. Just blitzing. So what it showed in that diagram, they had like 2 linebackers blitzing. Well, if you're good enough and and you're prepared for that, and you got the linebackers coming, well, that's going to start opening up some space, right? Because of this, Shaw used a pass play that kept 2 backs with him to ward off the charging defenseman. Once in a while, the red dogging paid off for the Chicago, but the tacklers were kept away long enough to permit Shaw to hit Gifford. Kyle Rote, the Giant left end, led the way as a possible pass receiver on this maneuver. It was his job to get the deep Cardinal defense moving toward its right. Then Gifford, starting from about 10 yards to the left of the Giants' line, swept down and to his right, taking the ball over the center of the line. Allie Sherman, the Giant coach of offense, sketched the accompanying diagram and said, "We didn't have too good a day on offense, but at least this play worked a bit." Sherman praised the Cardinal defensive backfield, saying those 4 they have back there are fast, and you have to throw a sharp pass to beat them. They're quick enough to stop anything else. Each time Shaw tried to play illustrated, he threw a bullet pass into Gifford's midsection. The ball didn't travel much more than 6 feet off the ground and hit his target hard. When Gifford caught the ball in the first period, he didn't have things so easy as he would have liked, but he did a good job in beating Jerry Norton and Billy Stacy, 2 defenders who were not fooled too much by Rote's decoy work. Nevertheless, any little delay helps, and Gifford got between the 2 Cardinal defenders who might have just cocked an eye toward Rote before sensing the true nature of the pass. 4 plays later, when the Giants hadn't been able to get another first down, Summerall notched his first 3-pointer of the afternoon. In the fourth period, with Don Heinrich at quarterback and passing, Gifford caught another pass on the same play, good for 32 yards. This was the big move that put the ball within reach for Summerall's 3rd field goal. Following the game, Coach Jim Lee Howell said, "We were not making the gains we should. We were sputtering. At least the middle pass play helped keep the offense from coming to a halt." All right, and we got, let's see, here's this one. All right, let me just show you this one here. The pantograph. Let me just show you. Let me show you real fast. You got a picture of Summerall kicking a field goal here. So we got the November 9th, 1959 edition of the pantograph. Pantograph. Here we go. Cardinals jumping up, trying to kick a. Oh, where the ball's at here. Looks like he just struck it, so maybe the ball hasn't gone over the line of scrimmage yet. Pat Summerall, kicking specialist for the Giants, follows through with his trusty right leg as he watches the ball. Top right. What do we have here? Top right. Oh, there it is. Way up there. Oh, my God. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Wow, he got that baby up there. Holy cow. Look how high that thing is compared to these guys down here. Wow, he got that up there. for his first field goal. All right, so then let's see what else we got here. All right, so let's go to Chicago Tribune here. See what they got to say. A lot of coverage on this one, a lot of coverage here. So we got Chicago Tribune. All right, the November 9th, 1959 edition of the Chicago Tribune. The Bears overpower the Packers, but the Giants outkicked the Cardinals. There's Pat Summerall showing off his toe. In a titanic battle of defenses, the mighty New York Giants this murky Sunday afternoon turned back the challenge of the most stout-hearted Chicago Cardinals club since the championship years of the late 40s. The trusty toe of Pat Summerall, a former Cardinal, was the margin of victory in a tense struggle waged before 56,779 Yankee Stadium fans, in which they nary a touchdown was scored. Boots 3 field goals. Final score was 9-3, and with the victory, the New Yorkers, who now have won 6 of 7 National Football League outings, tighten their grip on first place in the Eastern Division. The Cardinals' record is now 2-5, and soon to be 2-10. Summerall booted 3 field goals, one from 49 yards out, to offset Bobby Conrad's 26-yard kick in the second quarter, which furnished the Cardinals' only points of the thrill-packed day. Once again, handicapped by lack of an effective passing attack, the Cards tried to compensate by throwing a hard-nosed defense and a surprise offense at the Giants. They might have gotten away with it had not Summerall been around. Coach Frank Pop Ivy, whose bag of offensive tricks is seemingly inexhaustible, sent the Cardinals into a tight T formation in the first half in the effort to maintain ball control. But the stratagem, but the strategy didn't work as well for the Cards as it had for the Chicago Bears the previous week in Los Angeles. The Giants, aware that the Cardinals had no strong passing threat, kept their defense pulled in tight, and the Cards found New York's massive defensive line tough to penetrate. King Hill, Cardinal quarterback, had another disheartening afternoon. Time after time, Hill failed to connect on third down pass attempts, and 3 of his throws were intercepted to end Cardinal drives. Coach Jim Leal of the Giants kept his word and did not allow his injured. All right, let's go to that. All right, the next one here. The next page of the Chicago Tribune, November 9th, 1959 edition. This is page 75 of the Chicago Tribune. So Coach Jim Leal kept his word and did not let quarterback Charlie Connolly to get into the fracas, except for to hold the ball for Summerall's kicks. But George Shaw ran the team skillfully in the first half, and after Shaw suffered a thumb injury, Don Heinrich took over in the second half to keep the New Yorkers moving. Gifford irks the Cardinals. Halfback Frank Gifford, who was listed as a doubtful participant, was very much in evidence. Gifford not only started, but was one of the biggest headaches of the Cardinal defensive platoon. Gifford snared a 24-yard pass from Shaw to set up Summerall's first field goal. The kick from the Cardinal 37-yard line sent the Giants into a 3-0 lead midway through the first quarter. John Crow, one of Pro Football's greatest running backs, fielded the kickoff following Summerall's field goal at the Cardinal 10 and raced 72 yards down to the New York 18 before he was pulled down. But 3 plays later, Crow fumbled, and Dick Modzelewski recovered for the Giants to ruin the Cardinals' first of many scoring chances. As the first quarter ended, the Cardinals again were deep in New York territory, following a 21-yard pass from Hill to John Tracy. The Chicagoans could not move past the Giants' 18, and on 4th play of the second period, Conrad's 26-yard field goal knotted the count at 3. The score remained tied until the middle of the third quarter, when Andy Robustelli recovered a fumble by Hill and returned it 33 yards to the Cardinal 43. When the Giants could not penetrate further, Summerall swung his mighty foot from the Cardinal 49-yard line, and the Giants were back in the lead 6-3. Defensive alertness on the part of the Cardinals kept the Giants at bay during the remainder of the third period. Bill Stacy intercepted a pass by Gifford to halt the Giant march at the Cardinal 11. On the first play of the last quarter, Hill, attempting to throw to Sonny Randle, planted the ball in the hands of Lyndon Crow, a former Cardinal who now draws his paychecks from the Giants. The interception gave New York the ball on the Cardinal 14. But the Cardinal defensive platoon rose up to smack down Alex Webster at the 5 on fourth down, and the Cardinals still had life. A beautifully executed 32-yard pass from Heinrich to Gifford again put the Giants within apparent easy range of a touchdown minutes later. But the Cardinals gave Heinrich a hard charge, and the Giants had to settle for Summerall's third field goal of the afternoon. This one, a 20-yard effort. The Cardinals tried to drive for the winning touchdown, but could not muster the offensive punch. They had their last chance just after officials signaled a 2-minute warning. Hill faded to pass, looked over his receivers, and chose Randle. Harlan Safari, Giant linebacker, easily stepped in front of Randle to intercept, and the Cards never had the ball again. And there you go. There's all the penalty. I see the Cardinals had 3 penalties called on them for 25 yards. Giants had 3 penalties called on them. So granted, 6 penalties were accepted. I mean, sometimes it seems like you have almost 6 penalties called on a drive nowadays. Sometimes it's very unwatchable. Let's see. We got the Cardinals fumbled 5 times, lost 2 of them. The Giants fumbled twice, lost 1. I mean, the interception. I mean, the Cardinals had 3 interceptions. The Giants had 2. Just very, very sloppy game. There's a total of 7 fumbles, 5 interceptions. I mean, very, very sloppy. So we didn't have. There we go. And there's the coaches. There's the referees. There's the teams. Field goals. There's the starting offensive units for both teams. So, obviously it was much tighter. Now, had everybody been healthy for both clubs and all that, might have been a little bit of a different score. Maybe the Cardinals might have scored a little bit more, but I mean the Giants might have scored a little bit more. But it is what it is. But I mean, the Giants were the better team, and especially on the day, they were the better team and they won. But I mean, it's not always, as I said, sometimes it's not the Cardinals being maybe the worst team in the Eastern Division playing the Giants, who are the best team in the Eastern Division, and the Cardinals are playing in Yankee Stadium and say, oh, my God, this could be a blowout. Well, sometimes, as I said, it's when you play them. And the Giants had Schnelko, and they said like something wrong with his back, pinched nerve in his back. Gibster with sore ribs. The Giants' first-string quarterback, Charlie Connolly, didn't play. George Shaw injured his thumb. And in the second half, the Giants had their third-string quarterback in there. So they said sometimes it's when you play them. And that's exactly kind of what happened here. And, the Giants pulled it out, but it certainly was a lot closer than possibly it could have been. So that's the way it was on this date, November 8th. 1959, as the Chicago Cardinals visited Yankee Stadium to play the New York Football Giants in pro football's first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.